All right. I'll just wait a few minutes. Our guest is here, and I'm gonna wait till some people log in. All right. Welcome everyone to my COVID-19 isolation solution videos. The reason I wanted to do these videos is because I saw there was a need for them. There's been a lot of confusion as far as what to do with, you know, with preparing as well as educating your children, what you should do when you're going to the stores and things. So I thought, how can I be of help using my platform? So I said, you know what, I would come up with these videos. So I reached out to a few friends that actually fall in line with some of the things I was trying to get out to the public. Our first guest for today, he's actually a disaster preparedness expert. His name is Aaron Olinger. So I'll bring him on here. So hello, Aaron. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine today. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. So you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Since I was a young child, that's when my training first started. My parents grew up during the Great Depression, and it took World War II to bring us out of that. They taught me what life was like, having to be self-reliant, having to raise your own food, because both of them grew up on farms. And they told me that that's what got them through that bad situation. And even when they got into World War II, when they started rationing stuff, they told me stories of how you could have money to buy sugar or whatever, but if it exceeded your ration amount, you wasn't allowed to get it. So they had to learn how to tap trees for maple syrup, how to make molasses, how to do other things to come up with a sugar substitute, basically. They taught me how to garden, how to raise animals, whatever. And I spent a lot of time on my grandmother's farms and things growing up. So I learned how to work with some of the animals. And then as I got older, I got into martial arts. I've been in martial arts since I was 16. I'm still active now. I later got into different gun courses. I took close quarter battle classes for handgun, rifle, and shotgun. Along with that, I've taken combat medicine courses, CERT class. Uh, Under Nadia, I took a hydroponics class.
Yes.
Every year, I try to further my education. I don't feel that I'm too old to learn anything. And right now, I'm 61. I'm still seeking knowledge. So
Okay.
I'm constantly training, and then I'm constantly looking to share knowledge with people to try to help people get through unexpected situations like this COVID-19 situation.
Okay. That's great. So where are you located?
I'm in Trotwood, Ohio, and I've been a resident here for quite a long time and probably will stay here to the end unless they make
Okay.
us do forced evacuation.
So yeah, talking about evacuations and isolations, we saw a lot of people going out to the stores and buying, toilet paper and Purell, but they weren't buying the other stuff they may have needed. So can you talk about like what a person can do to prepare for such an emergency as this, or say a natural disaster or something? What are some of the first things that they should, think about prior to that actually happening? I know this was like kind of out of nowhere that this occurred, but for the future as well, what can they do to prepare?
Okay. If you want to be ready for a pandemic or, say, a chemical attack, one of the first things that you should have, and I'm going to reach and grab a bag of it here. Can you read that? It says, that's plastic sheeting. Okay.
Hmm.
And along with the plastic sheeting, you're going to want to have your roll of duct tape or Gorilla tape because you have to make your home safe. And the best way to do that is going to be to put that plastic sheeting up in your windows. You want to pick out plastic sheeting that will be a minimum of 2 mil thick. It will say right on the package thickness, but the ideal plastic sheeting to use will be 4 mil thick plastic sheeting. Uh, if the pandemic started coming through or a terrorist threw some sort of chemical attack into the area, You would have that to go up over your windows, you put it over your doors, and it would make it impossible for the pathogen or the chemical agent to enter the property to put anybody in danger. Plus, in the event that all the hospital beds were to get kind of overwhelmed, and hospital system will get overwhelmed, they'll probably send a lot of people home to be cared for at home and require their family members to do so. By having that plastic sheeting, you can set a room up in your house as a quarantine room, and at that point, you would be able to care for them without worrying about cross contamination getting into the other rooms and infecting the rest of the family. Also, another personal protective piece, and on the rolls of plastic, you're only talking a $25 investment. On the duct tape, probably about an $8 investment. And then another item that I feel a person should have, and I don't know if you can see it here, but this is a biochem suit. And this one has the attached hood to it. Also, it has the attached boot covers for your shoes.
Okay.
Now, with as many people that's dying in Italy right now, if they would have personal protective equipment, a biosuit, you're only talking $33. I mean, people throw that away on scratch offs, or they're buying cigarettes or buying other things. There's nothing wrong with smoking or enjoying yourself or trying to live your best life, but you want to have a certain amount of preparation in place so that when things go sideways, you can basically thrive through the situation. Along with having the personal protective gear, this would be another piece that's handy to have. This is a gas mask.
Okay.
You're talking about a $50 investment. Now, some people are going to be running around with nothing on, or they have these little paper thin N95 masks that really don't give you very much protection at all. Between that and the gas mask, I'd rather have the gas mask because it's covering my eyes, it's covering my nose, it's covering my mouth. That's where your mucous membranes are located. That's the area of the body that this disease is infecting. So a gas mask would automatically give me that protection. As long as I've got plastic sheeting, I wouldn't need it unless I decided to leave the property to go do some shopping or go visit a relative or something, or to care for maybe a sick person inside my property, then that gas mask will be invaluable.
Okay.
But just those three things there alone, you're just under $120 investment, and that would go a long ways to saving lives during a pandemic. Go ahead, Nadia. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So that roll of plastic, where can you actually purchase that from?
You would get that at Walmart. You go into the paint department. They use them there for plastic drop cloths. That's what they actually are. But for people that want to insulate their homes during the summertime to keep the air conditioning in, or during the wintertime to keep the heat in, they would buy that same plastic, cut it, tape it around the windows and doors, and it's an extra barrier for insulation. But in the event of a chemical attack or a pandemic, this is a must-have item. I learned that technique from the Israelis. They're surrounded by their enemies. They constantly live under threat of potential attack. It is required that everyone's home there maintains gas masks and plastic sheeting with some sort of tape to put up. And that's where I basically learned that from.
Okay. And the Tyvek biosuit, where would you get that from?
You would go online. Amazon had them, but they're sold out right now. And then there was other companies that had them. They were easy to find. They were relatively cheap, but again, that's why we prepare. You want to prep ahead of time. You don't want to be in a last minute rush because resources dry up and you can't find nothing nowhere. And there's nothing more frustrating than to be in desperate need of something and you keep seeing sold out everywhere you go.
So the respirators, could you also get those offline as well? Or where would you order those from?
There's survival companies that are online. There's tactical stores. And then some of the other stores would try to sell them as novelty items. But they're still the same masks. They're still the same military masks. Some of them are surplus. You can go to some of the Army surplus places. You can find masks there, and you can also find filters. And then there's survival stores around that you can also go to. They'll have masks and they'll have filters.
Okay.
But
Those respirators, do they fit youth and adults, or are those more for an adult, or how would you go about sizing those?
okay, those are designed to fit more adults, but they will go down to kids as young as probably about 9 or 10 years old. They do make a very small size mask that you can buy that will fit a kid from the age of 1 years old up to maybe 15 or 16, as long as they have a small face. And
Okay.
it would actually fit some adult women that, as long as they have a small face, those would fit. But again, you
Okay.
have to be very selective. They're harder to find. That's an item that you must buy ahead of time. You cannot find those at the last
Okay. So I got my plastic, I got my mask, I got my duct tape, I got my Tyvek suits. So when I'm going to the grocery store or when I'm trying to, stockpile food, what do you recommend that I actually go and get? Or what do you recommend
minute.
I don't get?
So let me add one last thing of protective gear,
Okay.
little
Okay.
surgical gloves.
Okay.
Uh, you want to have your good box of them because when you're going out, part of what will help you combat the transference of this disease, especially if you're handling boxes, you're handling money, because money can carry it for a short period of time. You're picking up cans that other people have handled, they may have coughed or sneezed on. If you don't have something to disinfect your hands with, best thing to do is have a covering on your hand. It's not going to be fashionable. People might want to laugh at you, but you're looking to get out in front of this and not come down with it. Now, going back to what you said about food, if you're setting up a food pantry and you don't have one set up, it should be based upon 3 stages. The stage one, that's going to be your perishable food that you have in your refrigerator and deep freeze. In the event of a
Mhm.
power outage, that's the food you want to go through first. Your refrigerator will still keep the food good for 24 hours. Your deep freeze would be about 36 hours. After that, the food begins to spoil and it's no good to anybody. Now, if you're able to, you know how to dehydrate, if the power, well, power wouldn't be on, the refrigerator's off. I was going to say, if you had a dehydrator where you could cut some strips of the meat to try to make jerky out of it, that would be a way that you can extend the life of it. Or you could salt it down quite a bit to try to extend the life a little bit further. But your first stage is going to be your perishables. Your second stage that you want to set up is going to be food that's going to be shelf stable for a year to 10 or 12 years. And then your third stage is going to be your long-term food storage. And that's going to be food that will last between 10 to 30 years. A good
Okay.
example would be if you was to repackage rice. Rice has basically a 5 year shelf life. Brown rice is only 4 because of the oil in it goes rancid after 4 years, so you cannot store that long term. But white
Mhm.
rice, if you use oxygen absorbers and mylar bags and you repackage it, you can actually store that rice for 25 to 30 years.
Okay.
And the same way with grits. You can grits has a 2 year shelf life on the box, but if you repackage it and put it up, now the grits will have a 15-year shelf life. So
Okay.
learning ahead of time how long food can store for goes a long ways to you setting up your food pantry. But
Okay.
again, your stage one is going to be your perishables. Stage two is going to be shelf life of 1 to 10 or 12 years. And stage three will be food that would keep from 10 to 30.
Okay. So besides food, what are some other items that a person may need to, maybe stockpile or you have a readily available, say they have to leave or, they have to, like we're doing right now, have to isolate and, a store may not be open. What are some other items outside of food that people may need?
But I've had people ask me that question. I ask, what do you use every day? Toothpaste, soap. How's your medical supplies look? You should have some sort of fever reducer. You should have something that would reduce inflammation. You should have something that can handle mucus. Any sort of cold or flu relief, anything that's going to give relief, and something that's as minor as a laxative, because when people get into a high stress situation and they're eating food that they're not used to eating every day, their body can get kind of bound up. You need something to loosen you up. And then the other people have the opposite reaction. They get
Okay.
the runs behind it, and that could be detrimental to you. So you would need some sort of anti-diarrheal medicine that, in case that happens, you could stop, bringing that to a stop before it begins to affect your health.
Okay. So if I'm taking a prescription drug, I should try to see if I can get at least a 1 month supply or more to store up,
Well,
or
if you can get 3 months or more of it at a time. Now, FEMA recently announced that they were, well, it wasn't FEMA, it was CDC, that they was going to relax the restrictions on some of the doctors, and they, because of this virus and the shutdowns that they're going to do, that they were going to allow the doctors to write prescriptions more out than just a month at a time. I went and
okay,
talked to my mother's doctor about that, and they hadn't heard it yet. But I'm hoping by now they have, because I'm going to reapproach them again. But
okay,
there is a way of doing it. Uh, you could always tell your doctor somebody stole your purse and all your medicines was in it. They'll give you no refill real quick.
okay. So when we saw people going to the store and they were stocking up on toilet paper, um, what is your take on that? Like, I
Okay.
know toilet paper is going to be needed, but how much is needed?
It depends on because the key thing is going to be your threat assessment. What do you feel is coming at you, and how long do you think you're going to be in that time period? Now, I myself believe in having at least a year's supply of food, water, medicine, different things on hand. If I was to tell someone to go out and purchase right now, water would be number one, food would be number two, meds and prescriptions would be number three, fuel, because you don't know if the situation is going to be over with before winter starts. You may need extra kerosene or propane to give heat to your house. You may want to have some extra gas on hand because you don't know if gas stations are going to be open or not. And you sure don't want to be in the line of the few that are, because that's a death trap right there. People will get violent, and you don't want to be out there in it. So just stock a few extra cans of gas on hand will come in very handy. And then last but not least, some form of self-defense. If you don't believe in guns, a bow, a sword, a knife, something, because when people get desperate, they're going to do desperate acts. They will try to enter your house. They will try to take your resources from you. You will have to defend yourself. You will have to defend your loved ones. So just having something on hand will go a long ways to building that confidence. And as far as foods for your house, I cannot overemphasize having some treat foods on hand, because when people are going through a situation like that and they get locked down, one of the hardest things you're going to have to do is get along with each other inside that home. People's nerves are going to be on edge. If the power went out as well, now the kids got no games to play, so you should have some board games. You should have some treat food, anything to make a person feel that everything is normal. And you give that normalcy to people, they're less likely to act up and get out of hand. But when they're in a high stress situation, the power goes out, you're sitting in the darkness, you got no backup lights or whatever, that could be terrifying for people, and that would stress anybody out.
Right.
So you have to look at and anticipate. In a pandemic, if you study past ones, there was always water shortages, there was always power outages, because sometimes people didn't report to work, always food shortages, which
Yeah.
we're experiencing now, and that's about to get worse. And then somewhere down the road, as people get more desperate, there's always civil unrest, and there's also an increase in crime. And
Okay.
that's the reason why they are bringing the guard in to protect or try to administer some sort of law during that time period.
Okay. So we have a question from Richard Gets It. He said, "How much ammo should you stockpile?"
Well, based upon the classes that I used to take for handguns, if your handgun is your secondary weapon, a minimum of 500 rounds. And if you have a main battle rifle that's like an AR, an AK variant, or any sort of assault weapon that can burn up ammo, a minimum of 1,000 rounds per gun.
Okay.
I know that might sound like a lot, but those guns go through ammo pretty fast.
Okay. We have another question here from Lexis Chavot. How do you clean water?
Well, I have a Berkey system. My Berkey system will even remove chlorine and mercury and stuff out of water. If you're wanting to use just regular bleach, the formula is 4 drops for a half gallon, 8 drops for a gallon. If you've got a big 5 gallon water cooler, it's going to be a half a teaspoon of bleach. If you got a big 55-gallon drum, it's going to be 5.5 teaspoons of bleach. And the bleach must be non-scented. It can't have Febreze in it. It can't have fresh scent. It can't be lemon scent. No additives, just straight bleach.
Okay. Do you
Also, I also use water purification tablets. Would be simple too. But
Okay, I was just going to ask you about the aqua tabs.
Okay.
So do you I know you used to sell like some of those items. Do you still sell like the aqua tabs and things like that?
I do, but right now, because of no shipping coming in at the moment to the country, my suppliers have ran out of products, and it's caused product shortages for me. I filled recent orders this past week, and I'm out of stuff right now. I don't have anything extra that I can sell anybody.
Okay.
But
Okay. So
you can go to Walmart, and in the sporting goods section, they have a product in there called a life straw, and those life straws will purify water to make it safe to drink. It removes giardia and other bacteria and stuff from the water, and will make it safe to drink. But if there's oil or gas floating in the water source that you're trying to drink from, it will not handle that.
okay. We have a question from Kyra Barr. She said, "Would you encourage people to get extra spices, vinegar, etc.?"
Almost definitely. I mean, you have to consider that a lot of food, especially if you're buying freeze-dried food or you're using MREs, a lot of those products do not have spices on. Some people have salt sensitivities, and then other people have sensitivities to different types of food. So you want to make something more palatable, more enjoyable for people to eat. Definitely stack some spices up, and even some salsas wouldn't hurt to stack up. I'm going to show you something here. Spaghetti and a little Italian sauce, spaghetti sauce here. Mm-hmm. Nothing complicated. Just boil water and sauce, and you got Friday night dinner. Long shelf life. And even if you had to, and things got this desperate, you had to shoot the neighborhood squirrel outside or whatever and skin him up and put him in the grill, little spaghetti sauce and everything tastes Italian. So just keep that in mind.
All right, we have another question from Richard Gets It. He said he's asking, "Would water distillation be practical?"
Yes. I mean, any sort of method to purify water, because there's no guarantee that the water is going to be running if we go into a lockdown. That was one of the problems that they had in China when they locked them down. There was no trash men coming, there was no water coming, and the power got shut off for a while until the military took over and started manning the pumps and manning the electric grid and got everything back up and running. But then later they had to bring in incinerators into the neighborhoods because they were ordered to kill their pets. And it was making the neighborhood smell pretty bad. And then all the trash was building up because, again, like I said, there was no trash men coming. So you may have to consider not only being able to purify some sort of water, but also how are you going to dispose of your trash.
Speaking of pets, this is a question for me. So what do you recommend if someone has pets? How can they be worked into your disaster preparedness plan?
Well, if you got dogs, I mean, they always bark at the least little noise outside your property. So they work as an early warning system in my book. They're also part of your defense in the event that you get attacked. They will defend you with their lives. I've even seen people that had cats trained to attack on certain words, and I never dreamed I would see that, but I've actually witnessed that.
Okay, I have another.
You also have to put back preps for them. There's certain medicines that humans take that dogs or cats can take, and you should have food put back for them and certain preps put back for them as well. Medicines, antibiotics. Um, they're going to need you too to be able to defend them, and they're going to defend you.
Okay. We have another question. This is from Roman Holly. He said, please describe how ammo must be stored.
Well, you want to put it in a cool, dry place. I prefer ammo cans myself. You can get them in metal or you can get them in plastic. But when you buy an ammo can, what the first thing you want to do is open up the lid and look inside. You want to check that rubber seal in there, and you want to make sure that it's moist, not necessarily wet, but it's soft to the touch. If it's rock hard, it's not going to provide you an airtight seal or a watertight seal. So in the event you had to bury it, it's going to leak water and your ammo can get destroyed. Plus, if you have Mylar bags, you can store ammo inside the Mylar bags and then put them inside cans or containers. And that would keep moisture and other things that would be detrimental to the ammo, such as oil. It would keep the ammo in good shape and keep it functioning properly.
Okay. And we have another question here from DGM513. He said, what should we look for to determine if we can or cannot help a person? At what point should we tell a person no? If they're sweaty, if they're bloody, what point should we tell them that we just can't help them?
Well, again, that's going to come down to proper threat assessment. You have to know what this disease is and at what point can they not be helped. I mean, when I took the CERT class, the first thing we were told was to make sure that we could establish an airway and that the person could breathe. If this person could not get their airway done, then you were supposed to mark them on their forehead with a mark to say that they couldn't be helped and move on to the next person that would be able to be helped. But again, proper threat assessment would go a long ways, understanding the illness that you're facing and at what point they cannot be worked with would go a long ways to knowing that.
Okay. I know you live up by Dayton where they were hit with those tornadoes last year. How was the response and how was your prepping? Were you prepared for that particular incident? Because I think the power was out for over a week, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me go back a little bit further. On
Okay.
February 15th, we had what was called the Dayton water crisis. And that's where our water pressure dropped way off. We didn't have hardly no water coming through our faucets, and what was coming through was pretty dirty because of a pipe break somewhere that they took forever to be able to find. And then you would figure that would help people out. Then people got to see prices of water go up, and just overnight, people couldn't hardly find water anywhere. Then you just go a few months forward. At 11 o'clock at night, we got a tornado swarm dropping multiple tornadoes different places. And the F4 came through my area. And, I grabbed my bug out bag. I went to my basement.
Mm-hmm.
Within 5 seconds, I could hear it go past me, and it was extremely loud. I was completely safe. I was completely confident. I looked at my preps. I looked at my food racks, my cases of water I had stacked up. I was completely confident that afterward, even if the power was down, I had a 5,000 watt power generator at a rate vault advance. I had cans of gasoline for it to fuel it. I knew I could keep my refrigerator running. I knew I'd be able to keep my stove running if I wanted to. And if I couldn't, I could use my microwave or my crock pot to cook in. I also kept a camping stove on hand with extra 1 pound fuel containers of propane because I believe in the system of 2 is 1 and 1 is none. If you got 2 of something, then you can got a better chance of making it. Because if you only have 1 of something and it goes down, you got nothing. But if you got 2 of something and 1 goes down, it becomes spare parts to keep the other object running at that point, whether it's guns, whether it's generators, whatever the equipment is. 2 is 1, 1 is none. So if you got more than 1 way to cook food, a hot meal goes a long way to keeping morale up in the home. So you want to be able to have more than 1 way. Most people have grills, but they don't keep very much charcoal on hand.
Okay.
And then on top of that, my camping stove would be my second source. And then my generator running, keeping my refrigerator running, keeping my microwave, my crock pots, my pressure cooker, I had at least 3 different ways that I could cook. If push come to shove, I could take a number 10 can, slice it down the side, bend the frame out, take the grill out of my stove, put on top of it, put some charcoal in there, and I can make an improvised grill. I mean, you have
Okay.
to look ahead and you have to plan ahead. And that's what prepping is about, being prepared for when things go south.
Okay. Um, as far as like money and things to barter with, because I know at some point, you know, if there's no power, you can't go to an ATM and things. So what do you recommend as far as people stockpiling money or, you know, having money on hand? Or what are some other items that could be used as, you know, collateral to get something that you may need from somebody else?
But in all honesty, I just had a barter situation with someone just recently. They called me up. They were very desperate. They don't get paid to the first of the month, and they needed some survival gear, and they had no money. Well, I can't give credit because I got cash buyers trying to buy right now. So I just basically told her, "You still got any of those Girl Scout cookies left?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "How much is the case?" She said, $60. I said, "I tell you what, bring me a case of the peanut butter cookies and I'll give you 65 or $70 worth of survival gear." And 11 o'clock at night, she was rushing over here. And it's just simple barter and trade. Whatever has value, it becomes currency. Now, I do believe in keeping money at my house. FEMA tells you to keep at least 4 months worth of money on your property, and that's actually up in the thousands. 70% of U.S. population is living paycheck to paycheck. So for a lot of people, that's not feasible. But in a situation where you're in a quarantine zone or something, everything has value, whether it's food, whether it's water, whether it's bullets, whether it's medical supplies. Everything has value. You just have to talk to the person, talk to someone and see what they need and see if you have those items that you can trade. So that's another reason why stockpiling is important, because that becomes your currency. I mean, cigarettes and alcohol, coffee, things that people need for personal pleasure or to relax their nerves, that all has value.
Okay. We have a question here from Lexis Chavon. She said, where can you get a decent generator from?
Oh boy. That all comes down to how much power you're looking to power. It also comes down to what fuel you want to use. Now at Sam's Club, they have a generator there that I personally like. It's a 3,000 watt generator. That would run most of the stuff that's in your property. And it's what I call a dual fuel generator. It runs off of gasoline, but also comes with an adapter that you can take uh, a propane tank for a gas grill and hook it to the adapter and actually run that generator off of propane. And I think that's ideal because if you're in a situation where you cannot find gas, you probably go to a farm store or a tractor supply store somewhere where they sell propane, and you'd be able to fill up propane tanks and keep your generator running. But if it has a dual fuel capability, that's the direction I would probably go with.
Okay. We have another question from Richard Gets It. He said, do you have any solar power in your system?
Not at this time. That's the next direction that I'm going in. I had ran into some financial problems and my budget got real tight. So I could only allocate a certain amount of money each month on my preps. But my that's my project for this year is going to be a solar system. I think that is ideal to have as a two is one, one is none to back up my generator with. Most definitely. That's the direction I'm going.
Yeah, I actually use solar to power my hydroponic systems that I had outside on my urban farm. And like one panel, I think it was like 250 watts. That can power a lot of stuff.
Yep.
You know, I was using my tools and I could charge my phone, and then I was still running my, you know, the pumps and things for my hydroponic system, and it was all running at the same time. So it just had to be mindful of the wattage and the item or thing that you're trying to run. But a solar panel, it really does go a long way. They really do work. You know, I'm outside and just working, and I don't have to use the power from the house. I can just hook it up to the inverter that's hooked up to that panel, and you just have power, and it's really easy. Yeah, that's my goal, is to get solar for the house as well. But like I say, it really does come in handy. Um, you know, it was one time when the power did go out and I could go out there and use that solar panels to charge my phone, so I could communicate with people. So it does come in handy to have solar panels. Let's see here. And we have another question. From Kyra Barr, she said, would you encourage people to get extra plastic bags for proper sanitation?
Yes, and I would recommend contractor bags, the solid black, 50 or 55 gallon ones. They're extra thick. And I saw where in China recently, those same bags were used to dispose of the bodies. They would pull one up over their feet up to their body and then pull the other one over their head and tape it with duct tape. And that was a way of being able to properly put a body out the street to be recovered. But for sanitation purposes, you're going to need that extra thick plastic.
Okay. And then Kyra Barr also asked, can you make a solar oven? Oh yeah, you can make a solar oven out of foil and things like that. So that is an option. I can send you some links of some instructions on how to do that. But yeah, solar ovens are available. They also have some commercial ones that are just kind of expensive, but you can make it with you know, things that you may have in your home already, and they really do work. They really do get hot. So yeah, you can do that. Let's see. Another question from Lexi Chavon. She said, where would you find solar panels and how much are they?
In my area, we have some Tractor Supply stores, and then there's another place. I can't think of the name right off the top of my head. It'll come to me a little bit later. They have kits in there, and the kits run right around $220. You get 2 panels, and you get the little power station thing that comes with it. But you have to buy your own inverter. You'd have to buy your battery backups. You're going to have to get those separate. But it's a 220 system, and it works pretty good. I've seen them on YouTube. People raving about. And the name of the place is Arbor Freight. That's where I was able to find them, and they are online as well.
Yeah, I got mine from actual eBay. You can get them on Amazon as well. But yeah, you have to buy. A lot of times, if you get the kit, sometimes the inverter will be in there, but then sometimes you have to buy that separately. You're going to need a charge. What do they call it? I can't think of the name of it right now. You're going to need to buy the batteries, and those batteries are usually like those golf cart type batteries. And then you have to make sure you set them up in either series or parallel. You got to make sure all your wattage is right, because if you don't, you'll do what I did. I set them up wrong, and I fried my inverter. It caught on fire. So and I had to get another one. So you gotta know what you're doing. Make sure you're wiring them correctly. You're gonna kind of have to be like an electrician. So you're gonna have to buy pliers and things that can cut wire. You're gonna have to buy wire, the attachments to the wire. But I mean, it can be done. I'm a nerd, so you know, I had enjoyment of putting that together and, you know, doing that. But yeah, you can get them off of eBay. And there's all different types now. It used to only be one type of solar panel. Now they have some that are like almost paper thin. Of course, those are going to be a lot more expensive. They have some clear ones that look like glass. So there's all different types. It's just how much you want to spend and how much power are you trying to generate. I know sometimes people want to power things like refrigerators and stuff, and you have to remember, you know, those things require a lot of power to get them started up. And if they're running all day, that's draining your power and things like that. So you got to take all this into consideration when you're setting up a solar system. Now, there are some companies that can come and set it up for you, but again, that's going to be an extra cost. But there's a lot of YouTube videos. That's how I learned, just watching YouTube videos and then, you know, going out and buying it and then just playing around, messing up stuff. That's also a teacher. But, you know, it can be done. Let's see. Got another question from Kyra. If you don't have rubbing alcohol, can you use 90 proof vodka?
It depends on what you're trying to treat. Now, if you're treating poison ivy, some sort of skin ailment, yes, most definitely. So I don't know what it is that you're specifically trying to treat. but it's part of my preps. I do have it as a backup to my rubbing alcohol and my what do you call this stuff? My hydrogen peroxide.
Okay. All righty.
And as far as the batteries for that solar system, I witnessed some people trying to experiment with car batteries. It slightly worked, but the better batteries I found out to use would be the deep cycle batteries that can be drained all the way down and then charged all the way back up. You do that to a car battery, it reduces the life on it. Just keep draining them and then recharging them. So the deep cycle batteries are the ones you're going to want to look for.
So I have a question about water myself. Is it good to store those water in like those 50-gallon drum type things that are blue? Should you store water in that, or is there another preferred container to put water in?
I prefer the blue containers because you don't want mold or you don't want any film to be building up inside the water. And with it being completely dark inside, that's one of the things that prevents that water from building that up. Now, there's a kit that I sell for right around $20. It has 2 chemicals in it. It's 2-ounce bottles. You totally empty both those bottles into that drum and let it sit in there by itself and let it kind of activate together. Then you fill the drum up with the water, and with that particular chemical additive added to your drinking water, that will keep the water good for 5 years. So if you're looking to store water long term, that's the kit. It's by Aquamera, and that's the kit you would use if you're looking to store water for 5 years.
Okay. I don't know. For some reason my mic had muted, so I hope that people heard that because mine is muted on its own. We have another question. It's from Lexi Chavon. She said, "Best advice for vegans if there is a severe food shortage. I haven't eaten any meat or animal products in about 5 years. I don't want to be in a situation where I can't get food where that can accommodate me."
Okay, in that case, having gardening skills for outside once the weather changes, and then in my case, I'm setting up a guest room. I'm a empty nester now. My daughter's moved out, so I'm converting her bedroom into a hydroponics room, and I'm going to raise food indoors and then start some of the plants indoors that I'm going to transfer to outside. But I am going to experiment this year with growing plants indoors in both soil and as well as water with the chemicals added. I want to see what kind of results I get a little experience under my belt, and kind of learn the ins and outs of just raising plants indoors when I'm going to have to face to be able to be better at it. So I'm trying to acquire more knowledge on that right now.
Yeah, when it comes to doing the plants indoors, the main thing you have to think about is that those plants are going to need some type of lighting, and that may be you have to incorporate artificial lighting. And if you have a power outage, that light's not going to work. So you may want to think about, having that light run from a solar panel or something like that. So you have that backup power source to keep those plants in that light, because once they don't have light, it's not going to grow. Also, with the outside, like you said, you have to wait till we actually in the grow season, or you can purchase like a greenhouse and you can grow inside of there. But again, that's an added cost, and a lot of people don't live on a space that's big enough to accommodate a greenhouse. But there are things that you can do to grow the plants and things that you need. Now, some things that you can store are like beans, like he was talking about the beans, the rice, the canned fruits and vegetables. You can can your own fruits and vegetables, and things like that. Um, I offer those hydroponics classes and things. Aaron has taken them. A lot of people have taken them to show you how to get started. And I mean, I'm always available if you have questions along the way and things like that. But the main thing is you're going to have to cultivate your own, or you're going to have to know how to go out and forage in the woods and things if it comes to that point of what you can and cannot eat. But if you're not close to a woods, I mean, you may have to resort to eating, meat. I mean, at this time, modern conveniences are not going to be available. It's not like in an emergency situation, like a restaurant that you normally go to, it may not be available. The only thing that may be available is that deer walking down the street. So you have to weigh your options here. Like, I really want to stay vegan, but right now it's the survival of the fittest. And this deer is walking down the street, and I haven't eaten in 3 days. I don't have my plants that plants take time to grow, and if an emergency happens today, you don't have a stockpile of plants. So you got to think about that. Sometimes, our beliefs and our feelings have to go out the door if we're going to survive. You have to take that into account.
And let me add two more things to that. I'm going to show a book right here. This is the complete guide to edible wild plants. As you can see, this was done by the Department of the U.S. Army. That basically covers all the edible plants that are in the Northern Hemisphere countries. So if that book itself, just adding that knowledge to your thing, would make it where you'd be able to go out and forage. And again, as I said about having a year's supply of food put back, rice is vital. You've got to have a lot of rice put back. I myself, I've stored back 120 pounds of rice, which is more than a year's worth of rice for a family of 4. And in the event that I ran into crop failure one year trying to raise plants, I won't starve when wintertime comes because I have enough rice put back and enough dry products, beans and spaghetti and other things put back that I can get through the next winter. And then you want to store up a certain amount of seeds anyway. You want to start your seed bank, because that's going to be vital to feeding you over the summer months. And if you know how to can, that's going to also help get you through the winter months. So picking up those skills and learning those skills ahead of time, that's good prepping as far as I'm concerned.
Another thing that you can think about, I know you're people that, you can always raise chickens, have eggs available. Also, people may raise rabbits. There's a lot of small animals that you can raise if you want to have your own animals that you've raised that you could potentially slaughter. Even though you're raising them for eggs, they can also serve as a food source, or they can be used as a barter. You can say, I'll trade. You have to you got to get creative. I had this particular live so we can get prepared, because we don't really know how long this is. Like, we keep saying 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, maybe to the end of the year. There's no clear ending to this. Things interesting before they get better.
And let me add one more thing to that, Nadia. As far as animals that reproduce quickly, there's 3 that I recommend: bluegill, rabbits, and chickens. And in some areas in an urban setting, you're allowed to have 6 to 8 chickens. And as far as rabbits, they're super simple to raise. And I've been in people's homes that had 50-gallon aquariums. I mean, some impressive aquariums, and they got them stocked full of bluegill. And those bluegill breed like guppies. I mean, you can constantly raise a fresh source of fish. And if you don't like that, I've seen other people that were raising tilapia inside fish aquariums. And I know some people don't like tilapia, but tilapia breed like crazy as well.
And yeah, you can actually do what is called aquaponics with them. So you can use to actually grow your plants in. So that's a whole nother it's not just hydroponics where you're just growing in water. You're actually raising fish. I mean, there's things out there. You would have to start now, setting these things up. So, if there's ever a need available, you can't decide you want to do an aquaponics, right now and I think it's going to be ready to be used. It takes time to, mature the fish, right? So the plants, you don't kill the plants or you don't kill the fish, and all these things take time. When it comes to farming and things, it takes not going to just be an overnight fix. Now you can go, like you said, and stockpile, and then still be working on that, so then you can actually store up your own things. But farming is you have to know what you're going out and foraging. You don't want to go and eat some berries and they're toxic. Whatever. So, hold on. She said, I've considered literally 5 minutes ago possibly but I won't get sick in case of I have a storage can. And then we have a question. Do you repack?
Okay, that's where you're going to use Mylar bags. They're a silver foil bag, and you're going to utilize something, and I'll show you what they look like. These are called oxygen absorbers. These are 1000 cc. You can get them as small as 300 cc. But if you're using Mylar bags, you would just put one of those in the bottom of the bag, pour your rice in, then put two more on top of the bag, inside the bag, push out as much of the air as you can, and then turn the bag against say a 2x4 or a hard table surface, and just go across the top of it with an iron, and you set it up, and overnight you'll see the bag pull in around that rice or those beans or whatever, as those oxygen absorbers eat up the oxygen that's inside the bag. And once you see that it's pulled all the way in, then you can put them in your buckets and then start stacking your buckets up. But if the bag has not pulled in, then you've got a pinhole leaker somewhere and you need to cut it back open, put more oxygen absorbers in, and then start the process over of iron it shut. And when you iron it shut, you iron it on one side, turn the bag over, iron the opposite side. And then, like I said, within 24 hours, you should see that bag drawing in around the product that's inside. And now it's ready to put away.
Okay. We have another question from Kyra Barr. She said, can you please talk about portion control when it comes to food and why that is important?
Well, again, you're not looking to go through your food overnight. A lot of people in a high stress situation start eating and they can't seem to stop. They start running through their supplies. The human body itself needs 1,000 calories a day to function. When you start dropping below 1,000 calories, after so many days, you start to become lethargic, and then after a while, you start having organ failure. That's the whole premise that the MREs, which are meals ready to eat that the military set up on, they're based theirs on that 1,000 calorie a day count. An MRE will have a total of 1,000 to 1,300 calories. And if you're looking not to lose body weight, you'd have to consume at least 2 a day to maintain your body weight. If you cannot do that, then 1 a day would be enough to keep your body functioning.
Okay. All right. So far, I don't have any other questions.
I want to say this too. Part of your prep should also be vitamins. A lot of people forget about that. Maintaining proper nutrition is vital. And if you're not getting enough nutrients from the food that you're eating, you should have some sort of vitamin and mineral supplement as part of your preps.
All right. It's at 7:53. So, is there anything that you would like to add or anything? So far, we don't have any other questions about putting use this as we progress through this isolation.
But if you're going to try to fight this disease, you are going to have to limit the amount of people that you come in contact with, and become an isolationist is probably going to be your best bet. Plus, if you decide to go out in public, you want to not touch as much stuff as possible. That's the reason why I cannot strongly underestimate these nitrile gloves, because if you have to touch door handles, refrigerators, toilet seats, whatever that's out there that you're going to have to come in contact with, even the door handle to your car, you're going to have spiteful people out there that's going to have this disease, and they're going to spit on products, they're going to spit on elevator control knobs, they're going to spit on door handles. They might even spit on the side of your car handle, and you don't know it's there. You come up and you could get contaminated. So to have those gloves is going to be vital. And you're only talking probably $5 to $10 for a box of them, of 100. That's pretty cheap for your own personal safety.
Yes, off Amazon at GFS. I don't know if you guys know Gordon. Who sells them? They're usually like $3 a box. They have and um. We have another question. I can actually answer. Roman Holly wants to know: are pet meta used on that?
In my case, I do use them. It's old farm boy trick. Uh, Whenever we were up in the hills in Kentucky or whatever, and if you're snowed in, you can't get out to the main roads to get to the hospitals. Using veterinary medicines, like for example, I can show you one right here. This is a bottle of amoxicillin. It's called fish mox. These are 250 milligrams. This is a pretty good antibiotic for respiratory illnesses and for like viruses. I use it myself. I've cured myself several times in a war zone when they start to run out of meds and they're dealing with embargoes from countries like the United States where they can't get humanitarian aid in. They automatically go to veterinary medicines to try to treat people with, because that's the backup. Certain things, certain mammals take the same antibiotics: penicillin, Cipro, amoxicillin, cephaloxacin. There's different ones that are out there. Most mammals take the same. So I'm not telling you for you to go out and do that. I'm not a pharmacist, but I've done it. I've had success with it. It's something that I will continue to do. But that's going to be your choice, what you decide.
Okay. Somebody else has a question. This is Jess and vitamins only last so long. Is there you can make? Is there a way you can?
To my knowledge, no. There's not a way of making them. The problems with food storage long term and vitamins long term is the enemies is going to be air, moisture, sunlight. A lot of those vitamin bottles are see through, so the sunlight can get through and age them. You've experienced having potato chips. You let what you think is air in the bag out, but if you let that bag stay open, the air actually gets in there, makes the food stale, it ages. And then moisture itself destroys food, and any two of those together or all three together can create botulism or create certain issues. You could try to repackage the vitamins and put oxygen absorbers in the mylar bags to try to extend the life. It will extend it some, but you may not get the time out of that you want. And any food that's out there, such as peanut butter, brown rice, anything that has oil in it, is going to go bad after 4 years anyway. So if it's got oil in it, and even cornmeal, you cannot get shelf life beyond 4 years out
of it. Okay. And I'm gonna address this statement from Kyra. She said also add bay leaves to the rice, and leaves is a good insect deterrent. Actually, a airtight container is a good insect deterrent. I'm an insect, and the only way you keep insects, keep them out. Like whatever container you put in, if the container's not airtight, they'll just eat around. You need to do is have an airtight container. You also need to use new products. Like put old rice in there, and think, well, I put this in here. I put this bay leaf in there, and you open it up, and a few months later, there'll be beetles and things in there. Those insect eggs are actually there, and so I know those things that take the oxygen or kind of kill some of those eggs and things, but yes, it will help controlling them. But insects are resilient, and there's always that one that can, still survive even the most extreme. So not just putting bay leaves. The container has to be airtight, and you have to make sure you're putting new, fresh things in there, old and aged, because that ups your ante of possibly those. Um, that's something that people don't think about too. Is insects, rodents getting into their stuff, carry disease there. They're urinating and things on there and eating it. You just have to be mindful. And the container that you use, it has to be insect proof and rodent proof. Just
Let me add to that, Nadia. There's two particular products, flour and rice. One's going to have boll weevils in it. That would be your flour. And then your rice is going to have grain beetle eggs in it. Whether you can see them or not, you must assume that they're there. That's the reason why I put the oxygen absorbers in there to draw the oxygen out. So if they hatch, there's no atmosphere for them to breathe and they die. But another thing that I do too is for flour, rice, I put the bag up inside the freezer. I let it freeze for 24 hours. I don't want to go beyond 24 hours because I don't want ice crystals to form in on the rice or form on the flour. But you're looking to freeze the eggs and kill some of the eggs, and then by using oxygen absorbers, there's another deterrent there. So again, you're using two techniques. Two is one is none, to try to make sure when you go later to open those packages up, there's no insects inside. They're just hatched out and done your food any damage.
Right. All right. Well, it's 8 o'clock now. For the broadcast. Thank you for all the information. A lot of people will log in, and it'll be available. And it'll be available on my YouTube, or if you want to watch it, you can do so. YouTube page. Also into YouTube, actually video showing you how to, I like the one video that he did where he showed you how to make a charger. So if you go on there, you can see how that's done. What was it with a battery and cool stuff that you can use to charge your phone. So he put survival and disaster preparedness videos on there. He's also on Facebook under Aaron Olinger. And what is the name of your group?
It's ARIN. It stands for a Resource Information Network.
Okay. Join his group, and he puts a lot of valuable information in there about all types of things. So you join that on Facebook. If you have any questions, I guess you could send them in his direct message. Or do you have an email or anything that you want?
No, just my Facebook page and ARIN page. I answer every question that people send to me.
Okay. All right. So let's see if we have any more questions before we log on out of here. Nope. All right. So I'm done for this evening. I thank Aaron for being on here, and I'll be back tomorrow with Ashley Kyra Barr. She'll be talking about some homeschooling and how to transition your home into a classroom. So I hope to see you guys back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Again, right here on my YouTube. So see you guys later.
Bye-bye.